welcome, and as promised, video 2 on how to take the little mold that we made before this and turn this into actually Adobe bricks. Now, I have the 2 molds. This is the one that I used as a demonstration on the first video. This is what we've used in the museum when we have students come and we actually do this as part of what we call a glimpse of life on the reservation program, in which younger students get to make the smaller blocks. Older students get to make the full-size blocks, and the blocks that would have been used at at the reservation were 7 inches long, 3 inches tall, and, 7 inches wide, 3 inches tall, and 14 inches long. And those weighed 25 pounds. These won't quite be that. These are 1/7 the size of the bricks, the full-size bricks that were made for all the fort buildings. So, before we get started on doing this, definitely, if you are one that doesn't like to get your hands muddy, then you probably want to use gloves. Otherwise, if you like making mud pies, it's time to get started. Now, the best soil that you use for this is a soil of mix that is kind of sandy loam, kind of a little bit of clay. You don't want all clay because then it'll be too clumpy and too sticky, and you don't want all sand because sand will fall apart. So I just went outside and I'll show you on camera what I found. And this is just basically good old New Mexico dirt. And this is kind of a mix. There's a little bit of organic debris, and you want to pick that out as much as possible. Definitely want to pick out all the rocks. So a little bit of dirt. Now, typically Adobes are made with straw. And since if we were making full-size bricks that we expected to hold something up, we'd want to do that too. However, using what I could find around the house, dry grass. There's definitely dry grass. Now, when I get ready to use it, I want to pick it so that any of the clumps aren't there, because that will be a weak spot on our branch, and I just want the finer stuff. So when we get ready to mix, I will definitely kind of comb through this. All right, it's a little messy. A mixing bucket, helpful. And water. Definitely, gonna need water. And my fancy dancy mixing spoon. Now, if you don't have a fancy mixing spoon, your hands will work just fine. Alright. And of course, you notice I put cardboard down because I don't want to leave it a mess. If it were a pretty day outside, I might do this outside, but it is not a pretty day. So I'm doing it indoors. So cardboard. And the nice thing about cardboard is once you fill these with the Adobe mix, and you're going to fill these in, you can leave them on the cardboard, take them outside and let them dry. Or put them in your garage to dry if it's yucky day like today. And so here's the 2 forms. So, now Fort Sumner was established in 1863 as a fort, and it took several years to complete it. Now, what is interesting to know is originally they commissioned about 500,000 bricks of these Adobe bricks to be built. And because there wasn't wood, a lot of trees out here, so they needed the Adobe to make the structures. And there were 25 buildings. And now the labor wasn't exactly, they didn't call up a contractor and say, hey, come on out and build us some fort. The captives, the Native American captives, which include Navajo and the Muscatine Apache, were put to make these Adobes. And they were paid $6 a month for doing that. It's about roughly a couple of $100 today. So not a lot of money. Now the original bricks, when they stacked these up, they were 35 tall. So they would have to carry these bricks of 20 pounds each and put them in place. First they had to build them, and they used these long structures. And what is interesting is like today is an interesting day. We get a rare day of cloudy potential rain. And so spring is a very iffy weather situation in New Mexico. Sometimes it's lovely and sunshine, and sometimes we get rain. And rain was an enemy to the Adobe bricks. And in fact, on July 15th, 1864, Captain Bristol informed General Carleton about the progress of the construction of Fort Sumner, and he wrote, "I have taken the necessary precaution against any of the building falling down from the effects of rains. I contemplate throwing up small embankments that will protect the buildings from any rain that we may have. The rain, I think, has ruined at least 50,000 adobes and put the work back 2 or 3 weeks. And I fear the quartermaster will not be able to build all that is required this fall to complete the post." 50,000 adobes. That was considerable, a lot of work. We're simply going to make 6 small ones. Well, because I got 2 forms. Now, if you made multiple forms, it'll make the brick making faster, and therefore you can get to building your building, or whatever you wish to make, from them quicker. Alright, so put all this stuff up, and let's get messy. Picking through the grass. I've got a little handful of grass. I'm picking out, like in this case, I get these big pieces. You want to pick all the big pieces out because that will not work well on your Adobe. The point of the grass, in fact, I used to use horsehair. So if you have fuzzy dogs, you can also brush them and use their hair. And what the hair would do is hold the mud together. And that is the whole point of the grass. So you can see I started here with this bigger piece, and I've just kind of cleaned it down and broke it up. Oh, you got scissors, that works too. Yeah. Put some of that in here. I'm going to break that up and clean that up first. And I may need more, we'll see. That's the fun part about this, is figuring how much you're going to need. Yeah, let's get a little bit more. One of the reasons I'm doing this in the kitchen is if I get it on the floor, I can sweep it up. Now dirt. And if you have screen, that's probably the best way to pick out. And in fact, today in modern world, because they still make Adobe, and in the modern world, that's what they use, is screens to get out any of the particulates that you don't need. In other words, rocks. Like that one. Don't need rocks. Rocks are not useful. And over here, in the Pecos River, we have lots and lots of rocks. So now we've got a dirt mixture with a little bit of our grass. And I guarantee you, if you don't pick out the rocks now, you will find them later. We definitely have so many rocks out here. So anyway, now for the mud fun. Yeah. When you do this, you want to make sure that as you start mixing the water in, you want it the consistency of like Play-Doh, because you don't want it, if it's real sticky, that means that your soil has too much clay, and so you want to add sand. And then if once it's wet, and I'll explain this later, when you squeeze it and let go, if it doesn't hold, then And if it just falls apart, then it probably has too much sand. So that nice mixture. Alrighty, so the fun part. And there's no science to this. It's just kind of, you want to start with a little. The less water to start with, the better, because then you can thicken it up. Otherwise, you have to add more dirt. So, if you help your parents doing any kind of baking, then this is kind of like baking a cake, making it sticky. When we have students come to the museum and we do this, we call it, it's called the Glimpse of the Life of the Reservation program. And it gives students an opportunity to find out what it was like for those people living on the reservation. It was, to do this, they worked for several years, day in, every day, mixing mud to create the adobes and then leaving them out to dry. And then usually you would flick them up one way and then the sun would dry them, and then you would have to turn them so that the sun could dry them again and make sure they were good and dry. And again, if it rained during that period of time, you could potentially have a complete loss. Our soil out here has a lot of sand in it, so here. There we go. Good. And a good texture. Okay, that is a good mix. This out of the way. Sand is clumpy. You can see it still good. There it goes, kind of falling over just like that. So it's a good mixture. Alrighty, so now what we need to do is kind of clean up our stuff here. Get rid of now for the fun part. And with all these bricks, you can make, once they dry, and of course, the larger bricks would take, a couple of days to dry. In these cases, it'll probably not take that long depending on the outdoor temperature, but once they're dry, then you can start reusing it, keep making more and more, and the more you have these little inch by they're half-inch thick, 1 inch, and 1 inch wide and 2 inches long. So then you could create whatever kind of structure you like. So this is the point where we get to have fun. Okay, now how do I know if it's good? If I squeeze it and a lot of water comes out, then I probably need to add some more soil. And you see how it's holding shape? So squeeze it, it's holding a shape. That is a good mix. If it would have just mushed or fallen apart, like I said, if it had just fallen apart, that means it had too much sand. Now if I stuck it and it just a lot of water came out, add a little dirt. Okay, so you can see that the grass is in there. So this is where you get into fun. Whatever technique works. We just want to basically press these into our mold. I've seen students make all sorts of kinds of techniques on this. You want to try to get it as even as on top of the mold as possible, because if it's really mounded, then it's not going to stack very well, and then you'll probably need to have a kind of a mud mortar. So, but I found too that when they get uneven surfaces, if you just, once they're dry, if you just kind of rub them on concrete, it'll just kind of shake them out. But try to make it as even as possible to start with. big differences between the two forms that I have here is the one from the museum has been used multiple times. It's been stained by our soil, so it has a color. This new one, it's Maiden Voyage. Now, if you notice, I'm sitting here tapping. What I'm trying to do with this is you want to make sure the mud gets into each of the corners. Otherwise, voids, if there's a void in it, it won't fall, it'll just fall apart. So, not a big deal when you're making a small house, a small little structure, but if you were to make a real house and you have the voids, you don't want your house falling over. Rock. And you gotta let them sit up just enough so that you can then take the forms off. Now that you got the forms off, now you just gotta let Mother Nature do her thing. Take them outside and let them sit. Like I said, if the weather is bad like it is here today, I'll probably set these in the garage and let them. But you can put them on the porch, set them in the sunshine. Best thing, set them in the sunshine. So there you have it. How to make, using the little brick mold that you made, how to make the bricks. So now, just keep going. And when you can get as many as you want, and then you can start experimenting. And if you do so and would like to, you could send us a picture of your completed bricks and what you make out of them. And look for on the lesson sheet on how you can do that and submit us pictures. Alrighty.